Good afternoon, everyone, all listeners and speakers, etc. My name is San. This is the Embrace Stuttering podcast, and I have a very special guest with me today. We we last had a Zoom discussion back in May 2024, so this is almost one year later. We have we have um, we have um, we have we have Andrey Denisenko. Um, just a bit about um, Andrey. He worked as a lawyer for the past 15 years, um, and 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 then he got involved with a website called Free From Stutter. And um, is there anything else you want to say about yourself, or have I said everything?
Yeah,
Mm, mm,
absolutely.
mm.
Thank you so much, Ahsan, for inviting. It's absolutely amazing and awesome to talk to each time. So by education, I'm a lawyer. Most of my life worked as a lawyer. Last 10 years, I've been doing this Free From Stutter project and running Free From Stutter program for people who stutter as well. So yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I'd like to say about about you from my experience. Now, I've got a lot of admiration for you. I've um watched your videos, etc. And the thing about you which is unique is you have a lot of people who have various uh, um, 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 stuttering um, techniques, um, and and they and they all and the and there's other people who don't have techniques and they accept. They just want to accept whatever happens is fine. What I find about those people is there's quite a lot of extremism in both sides. The people who want to stop stu stuttering and the I think that the only way you can have self-respect and self-worth and you can have a life basically is if you are completely fluent. So you have to speak the way they show you how to speak. And there's other people who just accept, who just do complete acceptance, but they don't do any work on speech, and they don't speak with any rhythm, etc., or any speaking styles. But but what I find about you is that you're very unique. If I'm wrong, let me know. But this is what I understand. So the thing about you, I find, is you have acceptance. You think this is how it is, and whether you stutter or you don't, it's absolutely up to you. It's fine. But here's a few things which can help and make it easier for you to communicate if you want to use it. So I feel you're very respectful in that kind of way. You respect everyone's right to stutter if they want to. And you believe in everyone's freedom to speak the way they want to. But you're saying if you want to, I'm not saying improve, I don't like that word. Um, if you want to speak in a different way, this is how I can help you. So you kind of give people the choice. Is that have I been fair in saying that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Hassan. Yet maybe I would go a little further. So what you say, I think uh, what quite a number of speech therapists say, and I think this is a great approach, as you say, that acceptance is very important, but here are the tools how we can maybe improve. Maybe that's the word. your performance or the way you express, or it's easier um, to do with some tools or techniques. Hmm. I actually maybe suggest that we can look a bit further. Um, so I see actually the acceptance itself through using what I call the training speech. So it's not quite a technique because techniques oftentimes we perceive as something that helps not to stutter. But instead, I would suggest that we can use the training speech that again I've been using and I've been preaching about. So if you use the training speech right from the start, from the first sound, and you use it consistently and openly, and you say, I'm in the speech therapy for stuttering, speech program for stuttering, I'm working on my stuttering or my speaking, self expression, call it whatever. But in this case, uh, it's again not quite a technique not to stutter, but another way to speak and to accept your difference. So for me, this is actually the acceptance when you use the training speech openly. Um, and I believe maybe this is a fuller acceptance, if you would, as I often say, because people who just accept stuttering, ironically, what they in fact do, they still try to say it regularly, normally, fluently, and like they know it's not going to happen. So this this acceptance topic, I think, is it's very huge and deep, and um, it's great to again go deeper maybe into that.
So, yes, what you just said there is very interesting. You're saying that your training speech itself is the acceptance, um, which actually reminds me of something which I read in Stoicism. People look at something as an obstacle, and what the Stoicism says is that the obstacle is the way.
Yeah.
You have to use the obstacle as a way, so which is really good. Yes, I have read about your training speech, and I think I'm kind of familiar with it. And it's, using the hands and the finger for each sound and syllable, etc. And actually, this is an exercise I believe that is used to rehabilitate uh, stroke victims. Yeah. And I don't remember what it's called now. Um, I know you call it training speech, but in the context of stroke victims, I don't remember what it's called. But I know they also focus on each symbol, which is very very interesting. I can see why it would. I don't want to say work, but I can see why this would be effective in communication. It's it's because people who stutter, like me included, we try and escape from the moment, try and run from the moment, and it can cause a lot of internal frustration because if you kind of come to a word, you're going to block, so you kind of try and change or whatever, and you become very hesitant and repetitive, and really your speech becomes um, very uh, jumpy. But if you do if you do your training speech, you're not really supposed to run from any sound. You're supposed to uh, confront it, but don't go head on into a forceful block. You kind of confront it into a different way. Is that a fair explanation?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the training speech that I'm using has only four. Elements, if you would. The first one is relaxation, especially on the first sound. So, for me in particular, because you mentioned this, like it works, and then you corrected that maybe not works, but how? Like, so again, we oftentimes think about not stuttering, and people automatically shift to not stuttering. So, why would we use it not to stutter, to say it fluently? But for me in particular, my personal experience, the training speech was why I loved it, was that it was the way for me to feel how speaking can be the source of relaxation. It was pretty amazing to feel that I'm speaking and I'm not getting tense. I'm not getting, um, mm, I'm not trying to overcome any difficulty. Instead, I'm just like trying and learning to relax, exploring how I can be present to the sound and relax on it. So, so that was my. So that the first is relaxation. Second is more continuous airflow when you go from the sound vowel sound to the vowel sound, from the stress syllable to the stress syllable. So basically, the idea is to just restore the natural rhythmical structure of our speaking. That's basically it. The third element, splitting and making the point. So we create space for pause. And number four is expression, engaging the eye contact, our body, so that it doesn't feel robotic or just it again, it's not a way to escape stuttering, but rather just a way to speak. So to say. Um, it's still training speech, of course. And in this regard, I like the analogy with dental braces, where for some time, for quite some time, maybe a couple of years, you come back to this training speech. And again, like I'm coming back to it from time to time for sure. And right now, I'm trying also to use it again, maybe to give you the feeling of it. So, but it's kind of um reshaping our natural predisposition to speech impediments that we have. So, probably again, that's another topic about how our brain works and where is that mismatch that gives initial neurological ground for it. But we're kind of reshaping that and yeah, so that at least the anxiety and tension goes away. Um, and like changing this emotional state, probably that's the idea of any improvement effort with stuttering, so that we feel like we don't feel any external or distorted emotional. We don't have any distorted emotional state. That's how I would see the goal with when we work with stuttering.
Yeah. I've just made a few notes, so I was looking down because got a pen and a book the old-fashioned way. Something which you said, which I've never heard before actually in the whole stuttering world. And I've watched a lot and read a lot. You said that like speaking as a source of relaxation, yet rather than trying to overcome a difficulty. Um, and I think that this is it's a very different way of looking at it. And if only we can stutterers can understand this and accept this, I think that can make a big difference because sp- because we associate speaking with with tension, overcoming difficulties. But
Yeah,
if you can use it to relax, that's really good. Um, d- 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 your instruction and your website is called Freedom from Stuttering. Uh, could you explain how you came up with that?
Actually, when I was setting a goal for myself back in the day, I set it as enjoying speaking interaction. And of course, stuttering for a lot of people feels like a constraint, feels like limitations that it brings. So by that, by freedom, I mean that it's probably our ultimate goal to feel that stuttering is not holding you back in your life. And sure, besides stuttering, there is a million things that is holding us back, but working on um, like expanding and feeling that stuttering is not holding you back. I think it helps us work on other things in life as well, like self-esteem, confidence, and like many, many other things. So um, I really kind of appreciate this image, this idea, this concept of freedom as such. So I like it.
You know what often happens with me. I have situations where where I don't stutter, or I stutter very, very minimally. And let me rephrase that. I have situations where I stutter a
Mm-hmm.
lot. I stutter a lot, but I walk away from that interaction feeling good.
Mm-hmm.
There's other situations where I stutter a lot, but I I I I walk about feeling bad.
Mm-hmm.
And 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 and, and what I'm trying to say here is, what I'm trying to achieve with myself is not to stop stuttering, but to be able to go into any interaction, stuttering or not, but leave it feeling good. Um, now, now I've got my own thoughts on the reasons I feel good and the reasons I don't feel good. But would you have any thoughts on that?
On the one hand, I totally agree with you. On the other hand, I also quite understand that maybe it's a big ask. Like, if someone like tries to follow you, uh, there could be like a conflict. Like consciously, I say, I should feel good, or um, like I evaluate this as a good experience, but there is something maybe inside, again, in this tension, fear, I don't know, that doesn't feel so great. So mm, I wouldn't be hard on, probably we don't want to be hard on ourselves if it doesn't feel great. So if it doesn't feel great, maybe um, there is a reason for that. And we want to understand why it doesn't feel great. Um, and you say, sometimes I stutter, it feels okay or great. The interaction feels great. Sometimes I stutter the same way, but it doesn't feel great. So it's really interesting to know why and how do you see the difference. My personal experience that each time I noticed in myself this tension and feeling overall bad, maybe not about the stuttering itself, but about this tension, I was asking myself why I'm feeling this tension. And my observation about myself is that that is the moment, and it takes probably a bit of awareness and asking yourself why. But I'm trying to hide stuttering, actually, or hide my difference, or hide, or I see this potential risk of being different. So, anyway, it comes down to stuttering shame and acceptance. So, for me, again, that's my why. the way out of it is open, active, positive disclosure to say, oh, by the way, I'm in the speech therapy for stuttering, so I might speak a bit slower, or I stutter, and I might speak a bit slower, and use the training speech openly. So, and if I do that, then there is nothing to hide. So there is no shame. There is no, like, I'm accepting it, not just conceptually, but um, actually. It's not easy, actually. I found with my students that the disclosure is the hardest thing. So it's easy to learn the training speech, to speak, to, as you say, relaxation, everything is easy. But the disclosure, whether it's stuttering, whether it's using the training speech, which is actually the same because it's stuttering on your terms. You like decide how to stutter. But the disclosure is the hardest thing. Uh, like among my students, I think 9 out of 10 say that this was the first time they disclosed proactively because um, how they can disclose previously is I stuttered, I already stuttered, and that's the disclosure already. You don't need to say anything. And when you do the make the disclosure, then it's kind of reactive, passive. It's more mm, like trying to say why it's not so bad. Um, so it's different than when you're doing it proactively, when you don't have to. So yeah, coming back to this question about tension, my answer, my observation is it comes back to acceptance and stuttering shame that we need to deal with and we somehow deal with in maybe different ways.
So, so my own experience was, for, for several months, I, I was having communication, etc., and stuttering, I was stuttering very repetitively. And yeah, even if I had any speech blocks, I wouldn't really force through them. And and I felt I was getting on fine. I was feeling content in myself. Um, and and then I had a conversation with a friend, and I don't think my friend had any bad intention, obviously, but my friend just said that, oh, you know what, there are some people, and if you, uh, for example, there are some employers, if you stutter in front of them, the first thing they be thinking is how uh, they can get they can get r- get rid of you. And and it was just like it was that thing that person said. And then the following day I had a phone call, and that stuck in my mind. And I felt that my speech was really was really tense, and I couldn't say any words.
Hmm.
And I'm thinking, for all these months having uh, I was having conversations. Yes, I was stuttering, but I could get through it with them. And all of a sudden, I can't even say a word. And then in my head, I started to think, okay, what word can I say? So I kind of uh, started to go back to the way I was um was before I understood things better. And that conversation was so hard, and I couldn't say any words.
Hmm.
So I did some self-reflection, and I realized I had a conversation with a friend, and that reminded me of childhood. When I was told I need to be fluent, uh,
Hmm.
to not just succeed but to get through life. I need to be fluent. I need to not stutter. Stuttering is wrong. I shouldn't do that. And I realized that I needed to reverse that again. So so then I then had another phone conversation, and I thought, look, I'm going to say everything. I'm not going to change any word. So so when I change my thinking, um, what I'm saying is this is what I meant. Was sometimes when I stutter, I feel good. Other times when I stutter, I feel really bad. So I think I feel really bad when I think stuttering is bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And then I just in order to stop me from stuttering, I can't say words. So
Yeah.
I would rather stutter than not be able to talk.
Yeah.
That's basically what I'm saying.
In
Yeah,
some
yeah.
situations,
Mm.
as you gave this example, you can sense from another person their attitude that it's wrong, that it's like 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 it's surprise, or it's, as you say, they sometimes people don't know how to react, or they don't want to talk to you, or they hang up, or they say, I cannot hear you. and and again, so those are situations, again, not very pleasant situations that bring additional pressure on us, people who stutter. So that's mm, understood.
Um, and and as part of my work, I've got to I have to attend meetings. Not only that, I have to uh, often I have to chair these meetings. And just coming back to what you said at the start, it's very helpful to disclose. And
Yeah,
and what I do at the start of meetings is to just let everyone know that I have a stammer.
yeah,
Um and and I just uh, say that if you haven't understood what I've said, just ask me to repeat that.
yeah,
And I think that kind of helps. That helps as well.
yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Even as I mentioned, people don't know how to react. They feel surprised. So even people who might be rude in other situation, when you proactively disclose, might react very differently with respect and say, "Oh, really?" Kind of. So that's again my observation, that people respect that proactive disclosure.
And what I feel helps me in speaking situations when I'm, for example, I'm speaking in front of a group of people. If someone has spoken and they've finished speaking and now I need to speak. And on one of the words where recently I've been having a lot of difficulty saying is the word uh, is the word thank you.
Mm,
So, so when it's my turn to speak, rather than just just getting straight into it, what I feel helps me emotionally is for example, say I'm in a meeting with you and five other people, and you've just finished speaking. So, so just before I speak, what I would say is I would say thank you, Mr. Denisenko. And then I would go into my into what I've got to say. And I think the reason it helps me is is because I've I've thought of a difficult word. I didn't escape it.
yeah,
I said thank you, and then the other stuff becomes easier to say.
yeah, yeah.
So I feel that often that,
Wow,
that helps me a lot.
wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
actually, when again the same when we apply it to my approach and using the training speech, when there's been a hard word or situation, what I suggest my students is actually recreate a similar situation proactively, and again, use the training speech or recreate it where you use the same word and use it again proactively so that you feel again that you're not afraid of it. It's not a scary or dangerous word, or yeah,
Hmm.
exactly the same thing.
Yeah. Y you know, um, you know, what? So, uh, so, w- so, w- when, so I I was y younger. I, I stuttered a lot, and I couldn't say many words. I, um, and and okay, what I'm trying is I'll just try and rephrase and restart. Whenever I did some speech exercises, for example, if I did reading aloud or breathing, etc. Um, it often improved my speech. It often did it. It would maybe improve it for a few days or a couple of weeks, and but but even though I was doing the same level of exercise, something happened. I don't know what happened, and my speech was back to where it started. And then I was thinking, I'm still doing the same exercises. I'm still I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. So what's happened to my speech? And that used to cause me a lot of frustration. And of course, there's many reasons from that. For that, I didn't have much life experience, and I was really concerned with what people think. But the way I look at things now is completely differently. Um, I've come to accept that I s s stutter as standard, and everything I do to improve my speech will always lead to stuttering. So I will always come back to that, and I think that acceptance has helped me helped me a lot. So now even in this call I'm stuttering a lot, but I I but I feel at peace. I feel at peace. Of course, you said you speaking as a source of relaxation. Um, I know I'm speaking, but I'm stuttering. But I, I've but I've but I've I've accepted that like no matter how much I exercise every evening, if the stuttering is gonna show its head, it will. So it's not worth getting upset about it.
Can I ask
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
because that's
Mm,
a really big
mm,
question for a lot of people who
mm,
stutter. I even have a separate video which is called I Don't Stutter Alone, because a lot of people say, not everyone, not all people who stutter, of course, but the majority, I think, vast majority says, when I'm speaking to myself or reading out loud, I don't stutter. And it kind of proves for a lot of people that, like, what is the problem? I can't say every word, every
mm,
sound. So it's not a like like it's not a problem that I'm having with some sound. And then the question is then what is the problem? So can I ask you, when you were doing those exercises, uh, could you still speak without stuttering to yourself, with yourself, as you're alone, reading out loud? So, did you feel that you, in principle, can speak? So, in this case, like, why would I do any exercises? Did you have this question at all?
mm. Yeah, first of all, this thing about we don't stutter when we're alone, and we don't stutter when we sing. Um, I, 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 for me, that's not strictly true because when I'm alone, I still sometimes feel stuttery, etc. I sometimes
Mm,
still stutter,
mhm.
and sometimes
Okay.
when I'm alone, I still have a block.
Mm,
But of course, not as much as when I talk to people. Um, and if,
okay.
for example, if I'm recording my voice, which I know other people will hear it, I will stutter more.
Yeah, that's a different topic. That's
Yeah,
that's
even the
already
person.
interaction. That's already
Yeah,
interaction.
but if
Yeah.
I'm alone and I don't focus, don't concentrate, I think I will kind of default to stuttered speech.
Mm, mhm.
And it's the same if I sing, yes, my speech will be more flowing, but if there's a word which I know I'll block on, I probably will block on that.
Yeah.
Um, so sorry, what was your question again, Andre?
Yeah. So my actually it
Yeah.
was like I was trying to
Mm,
double check because
mm.
you mentioned the exercises,
Oh
and
yeah.
again oftentimes people I believe they don't quite understand why would I do any exercises if I can speak in principle. What
Yeah.
can I learn if I know how to speak? And oftentimes those exercises are weird or strange, and they kind of make people feel sick or like very, very weird. So, like, I know how to speak. I don't need that prolongation or I don't need that weird start. So, and
There's
how can I apply those in real life? Because I want to speak normally and regular. I don't want to make those weird prolongations or weird starts. So yeah, so I
yeah.
can totally relate. Totally. Again, I was lucky to like from the start discover the training speech as a way to speak rather than not to stutter. And I think this um in most minds of people who stutter like they don't see the difference to speak on your terms and not to stutter. They might think it's the same thing, but for me it's totally different thing, just totally different thing. As once you start using your training speech, even the one that I'm preaching, not to stutter, you're going stuttering way. You will stutter and it won't work for you because it's not meant to save you from stuttering. The only reason, like it is, it can work and it should work as the way to speak, not as the way not to stutter. And it's a totally different thing. Mm, yeah, so this is my point about the
Mm.
exercises. So again, people oftentimes, and I see it again in with many people, they oftentimes do the exercises for hours at home, hoping that it will change the way they speak in real life. And again, maybe it does change for like somewhat, but ideally, as I see it, you don't prepare for your speaking in advance. You don't do your exercise, but rather you actually use your speaking as the exercise. That is the time to exercise. And that is the time you can use the training speech openly right from the start. And then it's a totally different feeling, effect, and again, acceptance, if you would.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you when and why I dropped all practice. So I've done a lot of different methods over the years, and there's there's different exercises with all of them. So I remember it was maybe about 3 years ago. You know, I was expecting someone to come to my house to just to look at some stonework. He had to do some stonework, and I think he was supposed to come to my house at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. And I thought, okay, I need to speak to this guy. So what I did was I went and sat in my car at around 6 a.m. Sat in my car and I did 3 hours of speech uh, um, practice. I did like, reading aloud, and there was this exercise where you're supposed to. The reason I sat in the car because I didn't want to wake everyone up. So there is a list of words, with different vowel sounds. Like so, you're supposed to like, for example, um, you, you're supposed to say them with force, like um, I don't know, like you,
Uh-huh.
ye, yeah, like and then la 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 la, and I did that, and then and and then just kind of reading with expression. I did that for 3 hours, and then 3 hours, and then I was sitting in the car, and I seen the um s stone worker come up the path. I walked out, and I went to greet him. Couldn't say a word.
Yeah, yeah,
Couldn't say a word. And that's the moment I thought, look, I'm not going to do any more practice
yeah,
ever.
yeah, yeah,
And actually, since I stopped practicing, and since I stopped caring about being fluent, I've had a lot of improvements in my own life. The improvements are I've got a lot more connection with people that I meet.
yeah,
Um, you know, um, I, I can all the time I was spending on practicing, I can spend it on um other things like reading and my work, etc.
yeah.
So so I think that helped. So yeah, I mean, is that what you asked me? I don't even remember.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I totally agree with you that
Mm.
this is the story that people tell oftentimes about their practices. They practice for hours, then they can say a word. So, and it feels like, why would I do that? Actually, again, as I see it, warming ups are great, but you don't need 3 hours. 2 minutes are more than enough. This is the warming up.
Mm.
So it's like the actors, I don't know, anchors on TV, they do warming ups because it's great. Maybe you as a lawyer, if you need to present, it's also great for like 1 minute, 2 minutes to do some warming up so that again it just opens those muscles, etc. But mm, then anyway, then when you're in the spotlight, that's the moment you're either trying to be regular fluent, or you feel so bad about it that you stutter and you're not fluent, or as you said, you make proactive disclosure that I stutter, and you you go with your speaking, even stuttering, but feeling okay about it. Or again, there are different options. You make the disclosure, use the training speech. So there could be different ways, but the disclosure, being open about either stuttering or using the training speech, which is pretty much the same thing, you're disclosing stuttering. I think this is the best choice. It's not easy, but this is the best choice. But this is a skill that can be learned, actually. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, yeah. So I'm really open-minded about things, and 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 I have a lot of r- respect for you as an individual and what you teach, and I know your training speech, etc., is also used, and not only for people who stutter, but also for people who have suffered some kind of brain injury. or a stroke, etc. So, can we just uh, go over what you teach and um, like 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 if someone wants to learn the training speech, how would they start?
Actually, there are two big pieces. As I went to my speech therapy back in the day, there is typically an intensive part. The intensive and many other programs that use totally different tools. The idea of they also have the intensive part typically, and the programs themselves, I think, typically what is meant is that intensive part where they teach you some tool, some training speech, how you can speak, whether it's breathing related or in my case, it's synchronizing speaking with pressing fingers on the thigh. Um, and you learn the training speech, and I learned the training speech, and you initially create some speaking experiences, which are awesome. You approach strangers, you like make phone calls, you have the recording. So it's a huge breakthrough compared to our typical life where by default, a lot of people that are still trying to hide it, try to avoid, try to escape um, difficult speaking situation. So it's a huge breakthrough. But anyways, mm, speaking pattern as such doesn't change fast. So it takes like I would say at least a couple of years where you can start see automatic change so that it starts changing like a snowball where your like new emotional state starts reproducing itself and you feel differently about speaking. So mm I struggled after that intensive part because like there was no like structure what to do next. They like speech therapists, they like saying, I gave you the tools, now you go and do it. Don't be lazy. Don't be like um, weak, ashamed, etc. But people are weak. I I was ashamed still of stuttering, of using the training speech. So it took me a long time to really get to this idea of um, that again 90% of the change is dealing with shame, dealing with like learning to really be yourself and not hide. And for that, I thought it's great to have certain sequence of steps, certain accountability, certain structure. That's why, again, I created the program where after the initial part, um, there's kind of a sequence of steps, and ideally to have some accountability, like monthly calls, for example, with my students I typically have, so that they feel accountable in a month so that they've done something. So, I mean, created some speaking experiences, some recordings, and we have this group where it's kind of clear. Um, Back in the day when I was in my speech therapy, we had these portable recorders. There were no mobile phones, no Facebook, no live streams. Now it's very easy to capture mm, your practices, your recordings, your it's very clear whether you're like doing something or not. So um so coming back to this idea, so after the intensive part, it's great to have this clarity how you move forward. Um so that's the idea behind the program that I run.
The see the first thing I would say is that people who stutter are are in a very vulnerable position, and to refer to them as weak, I think is wrong. And this is not only in the program you are in. A lot of methods, they say, well, if it hasn't worked, it's because you haven't practiced enough. And I don't like that. I don't like them saying that. They take no responsibility for that. And you know that this uh, you know this example I've heard being used as, you know what, it's all in your hands. If you don't hold the steering wheel, and you have an accident, it's your fault. I don't think that's the same, actually, because because people who stutter are given hope, and then I've known a lot of people who stutter who practice very hard, intensively, do everything that they're meant to do, but when it's important, they find it difficult to talk. And then if you say stuff like, that's because you're weak, this is because you're that, I think that's just wrong. I think that's completely wrong. So I thought I have to say that.
Actually,
Mm,
when I
mm,
say weak,
mm,
and again, I refer about my weakness to my weakness. I think this is an emotional muscle.
mm,
And the same way, like we have physical muscles, I think this is an emotional muscle. And my personal experience, and again, I think I see that in my students as well, that stuttering makes us tend to avoid difficult situations. So again, I became a master of escaping, avoiding difficult situations. And each time you face a bit of a difficult, like actually speaking situation where you need to speak, um, it's it's really like magic how it's hard to speak. Like I could go out for a practice having an intention to record myself. And I could ramble and go around like the same spot for a couple hours, didn't ask anyone, sweating, thinking, I'll ask this one and passing by. I'll ask this one and passing by. So, and then after quite some practices, I realized that even regular non-stuttering people, they also it's not easy for them sometimes to approach strangers, etc. But um, the same way with disclosure. So I found my it's maybe easy for therapists to think that it's easy for me to do, but for me it was extremely hard. And I found that again, I refer again to this as a certain emotional weakness where I could not do it. And I couldn't explain to myself why. Like I have the training speech. That's my idea to kind of use it openly to make a practice to have this training, but I couldn't do it. And I couldn't explain to myself why I couldn't do it, why it's so hard. Um, but again, I believe this is a muscle when there is more guidance and how to do it. And probably a good idea is to simply break it down into smaller steps and have more smooth sequence where it doesn't feel like a huge leap, where you need to jump over like several steps that you feels impossible for you and you feel bad about it because you couldn't do it. It feels like I'm weak. In fact, you're not weak. We just need to break down those tasks into smaller ones so that again this emotional muscle
yeah.
also is something to we can again we can develop. That's my point.
And of course, even if you have developed it, if you don't use it for a while, it'll weaken again.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
like any muscle,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, so just about the training speech, my understanding of it is that each sound syllable is said separately. Um, so if, for example, I am talking with separation of each syllable, that would then be the training speech. And what it gives is a route for your mind, like a clear pathway.
Actually,
Yeah.
initially, I'll show
Mm.
my thighs.
Mm. Mm.
Initially, it's as you said, just one syllable per finger. And of course, it's rather slow, but still, mm, what it does, it creates the feeling of a clear rhythmical structure for your kind of body and brain. So it feels kind of good that for people who kind of who mm, mm, get used to like what's bad about stuttering? That stuttering kind of dictates where you make this split, and typically it's not where it's meant to be.
Mm. Mm.
So it kind of leads the way, technically,
Yeah.
in the rhythmical structure, and that feels bad. So when you start leading the why, you decide where to start, where to finish. Yes, it's slower, way slower than regular speaking. So, and for me, initially, when I learned about the training speech, I've read a book. I even didn't go to the therapy first. I tried to implement it. I was in the university. I had to give oral answers, and I found that it helps with the first sound, but then I can't match my regular pace, and it felt rather useless. So uh, I that's why I anyway went to speech therapy, because eventually when you start speaking this with this training speech, you learn to use fewer fingers, which means you finally get to regular pace, which means you're using your fingers only for the stressed syllables. So the stressed syllables become those pillars of support in, again, relaxation, everything that we want to have in our speaking. First of all, again, relaxation, so that they become the pillars where we feel that alignment. We don't need to feel it on each and every syllable, actually. Gradually, we just use fewer and fewer and fewer fingers, so that um, you don't need to use it per syllable for sure. So this is just the very beginning. Mm, uh, Back in the day, it was days. Again, now when it's on online and I kind of extended it, it's uh, like several weeks, but just a couple weeks after which we start exploring fewer fingers and getting to regular pace, actually. That's the idea.
Um, Another thing which I think about this method was why it would be effective is that your um your first of all with the fingers there's um you know rather than just your lips and your mouth being involved for speaking, you're bringing your whole entirety into speaking, like your hands, um, and and you're more rooted in the moment. Would I be right? You're more kind of rooted in the present. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. It's very physical presence. So
Yeah. Mm.
you kind of you are here. You're here.
Yeah.
So um
Uh,
mhm.
because when mm,
Actually, I haven't created this
of
method. I
course.
just learned it in my speech therapy, and I found that
Mm.
it's really amazing. So, but the initial idea was to remove this mismatch between our brain and speech mechanism, and that's a big question. Where is it coming from? As I understand it, maybe you give me your vision. But as I understand it, this neurological ground is a certain mismatch in how we adjust to our own voice. Because speaking uh, happens in a loop where we hear ourselves and we adjust to our own voice. So, as I understand, there's a bit of that mismatch. So, the initial idea was to bring another source of that feedback that aligns them together, and there is no way to have this mismatch. Um, Again, that's how I understand uh, the physiological and new neurological part of it.
Yeah. So, this actually reminds me of a true story. Now, this is a story from Scotland, and it's about someone quite famous, a famous Scottish writer. I don't remember his name, but he's a famous Scottish writer. So when he was younger, when he was at school, they had this speaking uh, competition, and and whoever won the competition would be awarded a scholarship. So his greatest rival in school was a student who stuttered.
Mm,
But when he was on the stage, he didn't stutter.
mm,
Now he didn't. Now this writer, he observed him. What does he do when he's on stage? Now apparently in his dress or whatever in his coat, he had something sharp. He had a pin or something. So he held onto this pin and he kind of pushed onto this pin while he spoke. So while he was pushing onto this pin, he didn't stutter. And the reason was that the pain, it brought him into the present moment.
mm,
Because when you stutter, you think of all the times you stuttered, and you think, oh, what does
mm.
he think? What did my father think? Or what are these people thinking of me? But that's not really just thinking of the pain. So he didn't stutter. So then what he did at night, he went to his room and he removed the pin. So the night before the competition, so on stage, so he went to speak and he couldn't find his pin and he stuttered like crazy. So this
Mm,
other guy, he won the competition, and then he became
mhm.
this famous writer. So for a while, when I did presentations, I had a pen, and I kind of, if you can see my because of the blur,
Mhm,
I don't
mhm,
know if you can see.
mhm,
So I kind of pushed into the pen, and I felt the pain, and actually it helped my speech. It
mhm,
I can say that.
mhm,
So
mhm.
I can see why the hand stuttering technique, etc., would be effective. Yeah. So I thought I would share that
Yeah.
story. And also the the hand stuttering or pen, whatever, it kind of changes the source of tension from your throat, etc., somewhere else. So psychologically you're free to talk.
Yeah.
I don't know. Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
there is also this interesting topic about the role of um, hands and fine motor movements in like the history of development of humankind. Like
Mm.
as I understand, like we became humans because we started doing something with hands. So
Mm.
it's somehow I think it's rather mm, um like a big connection to um the brain. And again, I've heard that the fine motor activity of the hands are regulated like the similar or same areas of the brain, because speaking, it's also, we can say, fine motor activity. So that's again another topic.
Okay. Um, it's been a really interesting and enlightening conversation. I always enjoy speaking with you. I know it's been a year, but um, but yeah. So I would like to thank you for your time.
Thank you
Um,
so much, Ahsan. Thank you.
and
It's great to talk
yeah,
to each time.
yes, yes, yes. And I'll put a link to your website in the description as well. And I think your website is an excellent resource. You've got a lot of free resources as well,
Thank you
which
so much.
are very, very useful. And I would I would strongly encourage everyone to visit your website and consider a membership. Okay,
Thank you so much.
enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hope to see you soon. Yeah.
Thanks, Andre.
Bye bye.
I'm trying to end this. Okay.